Okay, so thinking about a career in cybersecurity.
Smart move.
Yeah, it's a good one. We're going to take a deep dive today into the world of cybersecurity career paths. And trust me, this is way more interesting than just reading those dry job descriptions. We've got some really cool insights from our research that I think you are really going to find valuable.
Absolutely. And with cybercrime predicted to cost over $10.5 trillion annually by 2025, the demand for skilled professionals is exploding. This isn't just a hot job market, it's really about protecting our digital world.
Absolutely. So let's start by setting the scene here. What's the cybersecurity landscape really like?
It's incredibly dynamic. One of the biggest challenges is that cyber threats are constantly evolving. It's kind of like an arms race. The good guys are always trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys. And that's where we need people with diverse skill sets. Not just the tech wizards, but also strategic thinkers, creative problem solvers.
I'm already intrigued. So let's get into some specific roles. Our source talks about security analysts being the backbone of an organization's defense system. But what does that actually look like day to day?
Think of a security analyst like a digital detective. They're constantly monitoring networks for suspicious activity, analyzing log files, and trying to piece together clues that might indicate an attack. They need to know how to use tools like security information and event management systems, or SIMs.
Seems.
Right. These tools are kind of like a central hub where all the security data comes in, and the analyst has to sift through all of it to spot those subtle anomalies.
So it's not just about knowing how to use the tools. It's about having that analytical mindset, right? Being able to see the patterns and connect the dots.
Exactly. A good security analyst needs to be able to think like an attacker. They need to understand the tactics and techniques that hackers use and be able to anticipate their next move. It's a little bit like playing chess. You have to think several steps ahead.
Okay, so that's the security analyst. But our source also talks about penetration testers or ethical hackers. Now, this sounds like something right out of a movie.
It can be pretty exciting. Penetration testers are basically hired to hack into systems, but they do it ethically, of course, with the goal of finding vulnerabilities before the bad guys do.
So they're kind of like the, quote, good hackers.
Mhm.
What kind of skills do you need to be a penetration tester?
You need to be really tech savvy. Strong programming skills are essential, especially in languages like Python and C. You also need to be familiar with various hacking tools and techniques. But it's not just about knowing how to use the tools, it's about understanding how systems work and how to exploit weaknesses in those systems.
It sounds like you need a really creative mind for that, to think outside the box and find those vulnerabilities that others might miss.
Absolutely. And there are different types of penetration testing too. Sometimes they're given full access to a system, and other times they have to work with limited information, just like a real attacker would.
So while penetration testers are on the offense, who are the folks on the front lines when a breach actually happens?
That's where incident responders come in. They're the ones who get the call when a system has been compromised. It's a high-pressure role because they need to act quickly and decisively to contain the damage.
So they're like the firefighters of the cybersecurity world, rushing into the burning building.
That's a good analogy. They need to be able to think on their feet and make quick decisions under pressure. They also need a deep understanding of forensics and malware analysis to figure out how the breach happened and what data might have been compromised. And of course, they need to know how to use specialized incident response tools to mitigate the damage.
Okay, so we've got the security analysts who are constantly on the lookout, the penetration testers who are proactively trying to find weaknesses, and the incident responders who are the first on the scene when something goes wrong. This is starting to feel like a well-oiled machine.
It is. But it's important to remember that each of these roles requires a different set of skills and a different personality type. What's interesting is that we've talked about folks reacting to threats and even poking around to find vulnerabilities. But what about the people who build the systems in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You're talking about the network security engineers, the architects of our digital fortresses. They design and build secure networks, making sure that data can flow freely while keeping those unauthorized users out.
Okay, so they're not just putting up firewalls and calling it a day.
Definitely not. They need a really deep understanding of network architecture and protocols. They need to know how to configure firewalls, VPNs, intrusion detection systems, and they need to be able to anticipate potential attacks and build defenses accordingly.
So it's not just about building a wall. It's about anticipating how somebody might try to climb over it, tunnel under it, or even just knock the whole thing down.
Yeah, Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that network security engineers need to understand the different types of firewalls and how they work. There are packet filtering firewalls, which look at those individual data packets, and there are application level gateways, which examine the actual application data. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
This is getting really interesting. It sounds like network security engineering is all about balancing accessibility with security.
Absolutely. You want to build a network that's secure, but you also don't want to make it so restrictive that it hinders productivity.
It's a delicate balance.
hmm
Okay, so we've talked about building secure networks. But what happens when a crime has already been committed in the digital world? Who are the folks investigating the aftermath?
That's where digital forensics analysts come in. They're like the CSI investigators of the cyber world. They collect and analyze digital evidence to figure out what happened, how it happened, and who is responsible.
So they're not just looking at computers, right? It's about analyzing data from all kinds of devices.
Right. Smartphones, tablets, even smart home devices, all can hold valuable evidence. Digital forensics analysts need to know how to extract data from all these different sources and piece together the puzzle.
And I imagine this work requires a lot of attention to detail and meticulous documentation.
Absolutely. They have to follow strict procedures to ensure that the evidence is admissible in court. They also need to be able to explain their findings in a clear and concise way, both in written reports and in court testimony.
This is fascinating stuff. It sounds like digital forensics is a blend of technical skills, investigative skills, and even legal knowledge.
It is, and what's really cool is that digital forensics is constantly evolving as new technologies emerge.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the folks who are on the front lines defending our networks and those who are investigating cybercrime. But what about the folks who are leading the charge at a strategic level?
You're talking about security architects and CISOs. These are the leaders who are responsible for developing and implementing an organization's overall security strategy.
So they're like the generals of the cybersecurity army.
That's a good way to put it. Security architects are the ones who design the blueprints for a secure organization. They assess risks, identify vulnerabilities, and develop policies and procedures to mitigate those risks.
It sounds like they need a deep understanding of not just technology, but also business and risk management.
Absolutely. They need to be able to think strategically and understand how security aligns with the organization's overall goals and objectives.
And then you have the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, who's at the very top of the pyramid, right?
Exactly. The CISO is responsible for overseeing all aspects of cybersecurity for the entire organization. They report directly to the CEO or board of directors, and they have a lot of responsibility.
So it's not just about technical expertise at that level. It's about leadership, communication, and being able to translate complex technical issues into business terms.
Right. CSOs need to be able to build relationships with stakeholders across the organization, advocate for security investments, and ensure that everyone understands the importance of cybersecurity.
It sounds like a pretty demanding role,
Yeah.
but I bet the view from the top is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the rewards of working in cybersecurity, besides the obvious job security?
Well, for one thing, it's incredibly intellectually stimulating. You're always learning new things, solving new problems, and facing new challenges.
It's definitely not a boring job.
Not at all. And you get to work with really smart, passionate people. The cybersecurity community is very collaborative and supportive.
And you get to make a real difference, right? You're
Yeah.
protecting people's data, their privacy, their livelihoods.
Absolutely. You're helping to keep the digital world safe for everyone. And that's a pretty rewarding feeling. What's also really cool is that the cybersecurity field is constantly evolving. New threats are emerging all the time. And that means there are always new opportunities to learn and grow. It's not a field where you can just rest on your laurels.
That's for sure.
Cybersecurity professionals need to be lifelong learners. They need to stay up to date on the latest trends, technologies, and attack techniques. And there are so many ways to do that.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, there are tons of online resources like blogs, podcasts, and webinars. There are also professional organizations like ISC2 and SANS Institute that offer training and certifications. And of course, there are conferences and workshops where you can network with other professionals and learn from the best in the industry.
You mentioned certifications. Our source talks about some pretty intense ones, like the Offensive Security Certified Professional, or OSCP. What's the deal with those? Do you really need a bunch of letters after your name to get a job in cybersecurity?
That's a great question. Certifications can definitely be valuable, but they're not the only thing that matters. Some certifications, like the OSCP, are very hands-on and require you to demonstrate your skills in a real-world environment. Those can be really impressive to potential employers.
So it's not just about memorizing facts and passing a test. You actually have to prove you can hack stuff.
Exactly. And some certifications are more focused on specific technologies or domains like cloud security or incident response. Those can be helpful if you're looking to specialize in a particular area.
Okay, so certifications can be a good way to boost your resume and show potential employers that you're serious about cybersecurity. What other advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in this field?
Hands-on experience is crucial. You can learn a lot from books and courses, but there's no substitute for actually getting your hands dirty and working with real systems.
So how do you get that experience? Internships, personal projects.
Both are great options. Internships can give you a taste of what it's like to work in a professional cybersecurity environment. And personal projects are a great way to explore your interests, build your skills, and create a portfolio of work to show potential employers.
Our source also talks about the importance of networking. Why is that so important in cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity is a very collaborative field. You're going to be working with other people constantly, whether it's your colleagues, clients, or even just other professionals in the community. Building relationships and connecting with other people is essential.
So how do you go about building those relationships? Conferences? Online forums?
All of the above. There are tons of ways to connect with other cybersecurity professionals. Attend conferences, join online forums and discussion groups, participate in capture the flag competitions. The more you put yourself out there, the more connections you'll make.
This has been an amazing deep dive into the world of cybersecurity careers. We've covered so much ground, from entry-level roles to executive leadership. What's the one takeaway you want our listener to remember?
Cybersecurity is an incredibly exciting and rewarding field. There are so many different paths you can take, and there's always something new to learn. If you're passionate about technology and you want to make a real difference in the world, this is the field for you.
I couldn't agree more. So do your research, explore your options, and find the cybersecurity path that speaks to you. And never stop learning. The threats are constantly evolving, and so are the opportunities in this field. Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to develop the next groundbreaking security solution or discover a vulnerability that saves millions of people from cyber attacks.
It's all about being curious, being creative, and being persistent. The future of cybersecurity is in your hands.